Long gone are the days of waiting to be seen in a doctor's office only to have that awkward conversation with your healthcare provider. WISP gives you access to sexual and reproductive healthcare from the comfort of your home. Get treatment for BV, yeast infections, UTIs, and much more delivered directly to your home or ready for pickup at your local pharmacy in less than 3 hours. The best part? WISP is discreet, convenient, and you don't need medical insurance to receive care or prescription medication. Visit us today at hellowisp.com.
Oh, I'm not switching my team to some fancy work platform that somehow knows exactly how we work. And its AI features are literally saving us hours every day. We're big fans. And just like that, teams all around the world are falling for Monday.com. With intuitive design, seamless AI capabilities, and custom workflows, it's the work platform your team will instantly click with. Head to Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use.
Welcome back to another episode of Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. This week on the podcast, we are going to go over a much needed stock market update. I want us to also be very mindful and reflect on the recovery that we have had since our all-time high in February, and then, of course, the low that we hit in April. I feel like a lot of the times we move through these experiences within just a couple of months, and we really don't reflect on how we handled the experience. And there is so much to learn from market volatility. Before we get into our stock market update, I just want to share with you all that the Texas legislative session is officially over. I am recording this episode on Friday, June 6th. And our last day for the Texas legislature was Monday. We refer to the last day as sine die, which is a Latin phrase that means without a day. It basically means that we will no longer set a day to reconvene. It is the final adjournment. Now, while we are all hopeful that Monday was our sine die and we will not reconvene, there is absolutely a possibility that we may get called back into session. I know that for the last several sessions, our Texas legislators have been getting called back in for what we consider to be a special session. Fingers crossed that we don't have to be back until 2027. So I am really excited to move forward and pour back into Investies, pour back into my business, and just resubmerge myself into my North Star, where my passion is, which is the economy of the United States of America, educating, demystifying this specific topic, and of course, doing my part to help create and build a strong investor, specifically for those that have been kept out of investing in the stock market, which is only 85% of Americans. It is really important for me to acknowledge that 90% of those that own stocks in the stock market are white. Meanwhile, 1.1% are Black and 0.5% are Hispanic. These are important numbers because it tells us what the margin of inequality is when it comes to participation. And one of the reasons I want to really tap into that is because not only do we lack resources that can explain, demystify in very simple terms how to invest in the market. We don't have the resources in schools, so we're not being set up to participate, which then keeps us not engaged in the economy, not understanding what is actually taking place, We are in a crucial time right now. We just got downgraded from Moody's, which is one of the bureaus that gives a rating to the United States of America. We had an episode a couple of years ago, the last time we were downgraded by another bureau. We will link that episode in the show notes so that you could learn about these bureaus and learn about ratings for the United States of America. It is very similar to the way we get a credit score. The United States of America gets a rating. Our rating came down for one of these bureaus. The United States is in trouble. We are in massive debt and we are paying crazy interest on this debt. We should most definitely all be concerned, but I think what we should be focusing on is financial literacy and understanding how all of this works so that we are not just swept away by the impact, but we are active participants in the process, which is why I am so excited to be back and to just pour my heart into this. This is where my passion is. The last year and a half has been absolutely incredible. I love being a legislator and I look forward to continuing to be one if my constituents will have me as their representative in the Texas House. I think that it is so important to have folks with my background in the Democratic Party contributing to laws that are impacting the Texas economy. And so it is an honor to hopefully continue to contribute if, again, my constituents will have me. I did want to share that I received, I guess it's an award or a recognition for a Freshman of the Year for LSG. I was so excited to receive this recognition, especially as a person that is not necessarily involved in politics in the way someone that is more of a career politician would be engaged, which is so important. It is crucial for us to have career politicians that understand the system and want to make important and impactful change. I think it is also equally important to have folks from different backgrounds and different perspectives. And so receiving LSG Freshman of the Year was an honor. I definitely felt seen, and I hope that I can make much more significant impact with having a year of session under my belt, moving into the next session in 2027.
I recognize Mr. Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We also first need to recognize a member that has distinguished themselves. So the Legislative Study Group Freshman of the Year is Ms. Linda Garcia. She's been a great addition to the caucus and to this chamber, and we look forward to working with her as the years come. Thank you. Appreciate y'all.
Breaking up is never easy, but saying goodbye to your old clunky work tools? Well, that's easy. Just repeat after me. It's not me, it's definitely you. You rigid, unfriendly software. It's time to freshen things up with Monday.com, the first work platform you'll love to use. With stunning dashboards, customizable templates, and built-in AI that actually works, switching to a new work platform has never felt this good. So move on to Monday.com.
If you were fixing your bra straps, fussing with wires, or battling your bra during this podcast, stop right now. You'll want to hear this. Those bra problems, those problems you thought you had to live with, Third Love has solved them. Their bras make it easy to get what you want, whether it's ultimate cleavage, a smooth look, or stopping your shirt buttons from pulling. With over 60 sizes, including half cups you won't find anywhere else, you'll never be stuck between two sizes that don't fit. So stop settling for bad bras. Now's the time to treat yourself and get your problem solved. Save $15 on your first order with code PODCAST15 at thirdlove.com.
Let's jump into where the market currently stands from its all-time high. Now, the Dow Jones is down 4.98%, almost 5% as of Friday, June 6th. This really isn't a concern or a surprise. The Dow Jones is very slow to react to the increases or decreases in comparison to the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ. That is because there are only 30 stocks within that index that's being measured. The S&P 500 doesn't move as fast as the NASDAQ. So the S&P is right in the middle. The NASDAQ is fast moving, whether it is to the upside or the downside. And typically the Dow Jones is usually the slowest. So it's still having approximately 5% for a full recovery isn't really that surprising. Now, the S&P 500 is only down 2.42%. Again, these numbers are as of June 6th. That is really nothing. As soon as the market begins to recover, as you all know, it really begins to recover. And these numbers are recovered relatively quickly. So to me, I'm looking at this as pretty much a recovery. The NASDAQ is 2.88% from its all-time high. Again, we should begin to see a rapid recovery. We had a really great day in the market today. This is because we got U.S. payroll reports, and we are showing that we did much better than expected when it comes to how many jobs were added in the market. Now, we still didn't add as many jobs as we added back in April, but we added more than what we were anticipating, than what analysts were anticipating. And if we perform better than what an analyst predicts, you can always expect for the market to react in a positive manner. And that is the catalyst that we are seeing today. We are demonstrating that the job market is relatively resilient. Despite what may be happening in the economy, adding jobs to the market still remains strong, despite our GDP not being that great. With all that being said, what I really want to focus today's conversation on is the downturn of a market and the recovery. We had our all-time high back in February. We had our all-time low in April. It is now June, and we are almost at a full recovery. Now, anything can happen. We are still waiting to unpack how tariffs are going to impact us. There is currently a very public fight between Elon Musk and Donald Trump taking place right now. Believe it or not, this dialogue does impact the market directly, and it also impacts the sentiment surrounding the economy. We have someone that was supposed to be, quote unquote, Donald Trump's right hand that is now criticizing economic decisions that are supposed to be impacting all of us. And so this uncertainty always creates opportunities for the market to move towards the downside. The market does not like uncertainty. When it is uncertain, the stock market drops, and the sentiment of the overall economy turns negative. Right now, the White House is quickly trying to spin this narrative. We had J.D. Vance come on Twitter and stand behind Donald Trump and his decisions pertaining to the economy. We will see how this continues to unfold, but I want you to be clear that this is a catalyst to the way the stock market can potentially head towards. Along with tariffs looming in the back, While we did receive positive numbers pertaining to jobs added to the market, we still have GDP that has not been strong. So we have all of these moving pieces that are also going to impact. So this is not to say that I feel like we're in a recovery, this is it, we're moving forward. No, I think that we have a rocky road ahead and we should proceed with caution. However, I want us to focus on the fact that we are almost fully recovered. And I don't want us to just move past this and not take it in. It is important for us as investors, most especially as we're learning, to reflect on these experiences so that we can be stronger on the next merry-go-round. So it's going to be important to reflect on what took place and how you handled it. How were you emotional about it? How were you fearful about it? How were you excited about it? Did you invest? Were you too afraid to invest? Did you miss out on an opportunity? And if you did, that's okay. This is part of learning how to be an investor. But we have to make sure that you learn from that experience and you know that the next time it may be a great opportunity to lean into your portfolio and perhaps pour a little more into it. Like I said, we're going to have opportunities again, and not just for all the reasons I mentioned, but because this is the way that the stock market moves. We can stretch out and look at the stock market for its entire timeline, and we will see the abundance in opportunities to invest during a down market. One of my favorite things to say is that 10 years from now, it doesn't matter if the market was down 10% or 5%. I mean, maybe 20% because we don't always have bear markets. But slight movements like that are not going to matter. What is going to matter is that we are invested in the market. As we gain this continued experience of participating in the stock market roller coaster, the volatile movements will become less and less emotional and more pragmatic. I think this really only begins to set in if we are paying attention and being self-aware of what we are experiencing when the volatility is happening, what we are feeling as the stock market moves up and what we are experiencing as the stock market moves down. Not only paying attention to our feelings, but also being very mindful of what actions we take or we do not take during this process. A lot of the times, as we're moving through experiences that have to do with money, we try and suppress what is taking place. It is very hard for us, especially if we have deep scarcity mindset, to begin to ignore, suppress, push away what is happening. It is going to be very important to be very honest and direct with yourself. If you were unable to participate in the market moving towards the downside because you were afraid that it was going to continue moving down, that's a very real fear. That can actually really begin to take place. However, it's important for us to notice that it did in fact recover. And that when you do invest on the downside, you can always expect for the stock market to move down even further, which is why for us as folks that are learning how to invest, we don't come from families that invest. We take these experiences very slow, which means we don't dump all of our money into one specific purchase. We purchase little by little as the market is moving. And if we begin to purchase as it turns around and starts to move on the upside, that's a positive. As I mentioned, 10 years from now, it is not going to matter whether you invested when the market was down 15% or down 20%. What will matter is that you actually invested. These approaches that we talk about here on Investies is very different from the way someone that is extremely wealthy would invest in the market. And of course, someone that has no real fear to losing money. They understand the upside. They understand the importance of being invested for a really long time. We are taking a different approach because we have a different background, a different understanding, different fears. Our mindset is not prime to invest our hard-earned dollars into the market. It's just not. And 85% of Americans haven't been set up to make these types of investments either. So it's important for us to have compassion for ourselves as we move through the process. But I really wanted for us to take a moment here and focus on the recovery, the quick recovery that happened in these last several months. Of course, not ignoring that we are still in rocky territory and there are still many things that we need to be cautious about, but also having a very direct approach to the way we look at our portfolio. Now, I'm always going to be here, God willing, on Investies and on Patreon to talk through these moments with you, to point out, hey, we're at an all-time high. If you've been investing for a long time, you may want to consider repositioning or balancing your portfolio. Or, hey, we are at an all-time low. This may be a good time to lean into your portfolio. In February, I was sharing with you that I was selling out of stocks. And in April, I was sharing that I was purchasing stock. Those were very pragmatic, non-emotional moves that I made. On the upside during this recovery, I have friends asking me, what are we buying? What are we doing? No, friend. I did all my purchasing back in April during the downside. Right now, I am just chilling. I'm waiting to see what's going to happen in the market. Now, my current experience and the way I'm buying into my portfolio is also very different on the way I would like to advise for a brand new investor to begin investing, which would be to be consistent every single month to put in a solid dollar amount into your investments. As you start to build your portfolio and it begins to grow, the dynamic of how you invest will change. Now, for our beginners, I go through this in my book, Wealth Warrior. If you haven't read that book yet, I highly recommend that you pick up a copy. I walk you through the steps on how to begin as an investor, the things you should be thinking about, what type of budget you should set. I also talk about this in my course, Wealth Warrior. So all of this has been previously covered on another platform. What I want you to take with you today is not only reflecting on the last few months and the volatility in the market, but there's also a really beautiful opportunity right now. And that opportunity, as I mentioned, is to, yes, reflect on your actions, but you can use this opportunity to create rules for yourself for future actions to take. I want to give you a really quick example of what I mean when I say create rules for yourself based on past experiences. So during COVID, that was my very first bear market after having been invested, I believe at the time was 8 or 9 years. So I was geeked out to really lean in and participate and create brand new positions on stocks that I had previously missed out on. At one point, I was invested in so many companies that my portfolio might as well have been an ETF. It might as well have been a basket full of stocks. It was its own index, how many companies I was invested in. And I realized this was a massive issue. I was feeling FOMO because I was wanting to invest in everything, and investing in everything meant that I was really not invested in anything. And so I really quickly began to clean up my portfolio and scale down the amounts of companies I was invested in. And so one of my first rules was born, which is I cannot be invested in everything. In other words, I needed to pick a very small amount of companies that I was going to pour my energy into, that I would be researching and that I would be building, and that this was going to be the best outcome for my specific budget. Maybe if I was a multi-millionaire, then I would have the ability to have a much larger portfolio that is much more diversified. But because my budget was smaller, I needed to make sure that I was narrowing in on a few set of investments that I had the time to research and look into, not just investing into everything. And so one of my first rules was born, which was I cannot be invested in everything. And I was so grateful for that rule, because anytime I was tempted to build a new position in something that I was excited about or seeing positive catalysts about in the news, I would tell myself, no, I need to exercise discipline. I cannot be invested in everything. And so these are the types of rules that you can build surrounding experiences. So perhaps next time when we have a 20% drop in the market and we enter a bear market, you exercise a rule that says that you are going to invest a little more than what you would normally pour into, despite the fear that you may feel. All in all, what I want to communicate with this episode is that you evaluate your emotions and you continue to evaluate your strategy surrounding building a portfolio. We're going to have a much more in-depth conversation about this in next week's episode. I really want to touch base on personal judgment of your portfolio, and then, of course, being mindful of how we are judging others, specifically communities of color, specifically marginalized members that have never had the opportunity to invest. I think this is a very important conversation, and one that we will have next week. You're listening to Investies. I'm your host, Linda Garcia. This is an In Luz We Trust and Cosmic Standard production. A special thank you to the team, Asia Simpson, Eliza Smith, and Jacob Winnick.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.